that's not good advice. It's going to that accumulation model. Wealth equals money times rate times time. No, it doesn't. Money is a function of value creation. Money is a function of the type of mental capital you have, which is your knowledge, ideas, wisdom, tools, strategies, information, multiplied by your relationships. People, networks, mentors, family, friends, and the bridge between them is business. That's what business is. It just bridges mental capital and relationship capital so you can serve, solve problems, and deliver value, and as a byproduct, money. I like this right here. Insert your definition of success here, because most people have a definition of success that's determined and deemed by society, and especially when it comes to finance. Like, finance uses this term financial freedom all the time, but financial freedom has been bastardized. It's like people think if they have a certain amount of money in a bank account that somehow that's freedom, but I'm here to tell you that financial freedom is a state of being and a state of mind. And what it really is when it comes down to it is when money's no longer your primary reason or excuse why you would do or not do something. So it's still a consideration, but when it's no longer your primary reason or excuse, you have financial freedom. And so much of the world, they don't have financial freedom because money is their primary excuse. They use things like, say, I can't afford it, right? They'll say a deliberate declaration like that destroys all possibility because of the mindset and the paradigm that they're in. So there's really three main paradigms or mindsets when it comes to money. And the very first one is playing not to lose. Playing not to lose is born of budgeting and lives within scarcity. Budgeting is always about scrimping, sacrificing, saving, and delaying, and it ultimately sucks because instead of thinking about production, it leads us towards reduction. And I'm not saying that it's not important to be mindful about your cash management. I'll give you an infrastructure that allows you to do it more automated so you don't have to use that energy and that thought process just on saving, but instead you can use it on value creation, service, and solving problems. So playing not to lose, this is what my family was born into, or at least in 1913 is the time that I studied when my great-grandfather left San Giovanni, Italy, because he really couldn't put food on the table. Now, some people say that in today's world, like, I've got to put food on the table. It is not hard to put food on the table in today's society. The government will do it for you if you can't do it yourself. But back then, the government was actually taxing him, and the mob was taxing him because San Giovanni's pretty far south in Italy, and so the mob was coming in, and he couldn't actually put food on the table, so he left his pregnant wife for 7 years, went across the ocean, came to Sunnyside, Utah, became a goat herder, and eventually a coal miner. It took 7 years because that's how long it took for him to save up enough money to leave the tent he was living in, have a house, and get her to get on a ship, which my great-grandma, the fact that he got her on a ship, he must have been the most persuasive man in the world because I've only seen her in one spot my whole life. On the couch, worried at all times. Like whatever things about health, she defied all of them. She took Valium all the time, she never moved, and she was stressed. I think that those three things sound like death, but she made it to 103, just so she could worry about everybody, right? But like my great-grandfather, he had this really bold move, but at the same time, at a cellular level, that my family adopted playing not to lose. Like that was their mantra. That's the way they went about doing things. So my great-aunt, for example, his daughter, she saved up $550,000, but applied for welfare. Like, because her mindset was about, I think she had the first dollar she ever made. And what's really disappointing about her whole life was that her and my grandfather ended up destroying their relationship because I actually made my grandfather was my first client. It was kind of a token thing. He's like my hero and is like, oh yeah, Garrett's in finance. I'm 19 years old. So he's like, here, let me do something with you. But just a few years after that, he came back to me because his sister went into the hospital. She wasn't doing very well, and the way that Italian family worked is they kind of gathered all the stuff and put it in one account. It happened to be in her name. And all of a sudden, if she went into a nursing home or some type of care, all that wealth could be destroyed and lost, and you can't just move it because the U.S. government has a 3-year clawback and look-back period to get to it. So he actually sat me down and said, what can we do about it? And I figured it out where 2/3 of the money was completely protected because I found the paper trail, got an attorney involved, and I felt really good about it, right? But at the same time, he said, okay, well, what are you going to do in the meantime with the money? And I did really well investing it. Partially luck, but it was really well. Like, I got them really good returns. Some of it was timing. And then I got really concerned because I didn't know what was happening in the market, moved it back to cash. And my great aunt was like, why were you giving me $1,000 a month? And all of a sudden that stopped. And she accused him of stealing that interest. We just moved it to cash, but she was old, senile, and kind of a bitch when it came down to it. So I didn't get invited to anything after I wrote about her killing sacred cows. And it was like the best gift ever, right? I was like, oh, I don't ever have to go like have Aunt Mary, who stinks, kiss me. You know, I was like, it was a really good gift ultimately. But I look at like that family, and what happened is they were so indoctrinated with playing not to lose. I mean, my grandfather was a coal miner. My great-grandfather was a coal miner, even my dad. And they were in unions that would go on strike. And I remember just as a kid, like my family was eating saltine crackers because there was no income coming in for extended periods of time. And they just had this kid, me, and they had their house, and you know, they were having a hard time making ends meet. When a family goes through that, and all of a sudden they're separated, and all of a sudden they don't get to see each other, or they don't feel like they have enough, that type of scarcity creates a playing not to lose mentality. But unfortunately, it doesn't even take that for the rest of us to get trapped in that methodology. Because in the world of finance, how many of you have heard you should diversify? Diversification is playing not to lose at the ultimate. Budgeting is playing not to lose, scrimping, sacrificing, saving, delaying, waiting for 30 years till one day, someday is the ultimate playing not to lose. And unfortunately, no matter how hard you work in playing not to lose, you can't win. You're playing the wrong game. Hell, I learned this playing basketball in high school. We were up 18 times at halftime. We only won 3 games, and that's because those were really bad teams. We lost the other 15 times because we played not to lose. Playing not to lose is being so defensive that we don't think about value and service and creating something for other people. It is destructive at its core. Now, if you have a lot of wealth, diversification could be a good idea. But if you're on your way up, it's diversification. It's separation from your money. It's actually not going to lead you where you want to go. So let's put that here for a minute as one of the mindsets, mentalities, and structures, okay? Let's go to the second one. The second one is more subtly destructive because it's celebrated. But it's celebrated with only the very few, and we ignore so many people that their lives are destroyed along the way. And it's called playing to win. Playing to win is like where we look at the magazines and someone's on the cover and we're like, oh my God, look at what this person created in the world. But when we really research their life, we find out they're not truly wealthy. So 12 years ago, I met a guy by the name of Dean Ropart. He was a Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist, and I hired him because I wanted to do this research and say, of the Forbes 400, how many people are truly wealthy? And I gave him a definition of truly wealthy. I'm like, people can be rich and not wealthy. You can be rich by having a boatload of money, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're wealthy. Wealthy to me means 5 different areas. Now, you've talked about it within Full Circle. It's something you already know, so I can be brief about it. One, it is money, because unless you're going to have a loincloth and live in the mountains with a bow and arrow, money's really useful, you know? Number 2, soul purpose or purpose. Soul purpose to me is your values, it's your abilities, it's your passions combined for the highest context of who you are and as a human being to deliver in this world. That's your soul purpose. The third thing is your mindset. You've talked about it. You've understood that. Tom eloquently presented that. The fourth thing is your health. We got a lot of doctors in the room, so we know how important health is. I love that proverb that says, someone with their health has 1,000 dreams, someone without has but one. Right? Health is absolutely part of our wealth. I'm like getting so fired up here, like I'm emphasizing it in like pain on my face here. But health, and then the last one is the social aspect. Relaxation, rejuvenation, recreation. When people play to win, they don't think about that. That's for sissies, or I was going to use a different word, but I had a filter, which doesn't happen very often. I'm proud of myself. But we don't have balance in these 5 tracks, by the way. To be wealthy isn't to be balanced there. It's to have harmony. It's to have depth. You can be out of balance and have harmony because of your presence, because of your intention, because of your commitment, because of your definition of success. So Playing to win, it forgets about all that, because playing to win is typically win at all costs. Win at the cost of your health. Win at the cost of your marriage. Win at the cost of your kids. Win at the cost of your quality of life. It's win at all cost, and it's actually celebrated in North America. I mean, if we look at the icons that people hold up and they go, this person's amazing. If we just look into their life for just a minute, I figured on the Forbes 400 with Dean that there was no more than 25 people we consider maybe truly wealthy. Meaning one guy had lost his legs because of diabetes. He might give back his $1 billion to maybe get that back and take it back, but it was too late, right? One was a drug dealer, by the way. I don't really consider that truly wealthy, like mainly cocaine. I mean, not just, big pharma. I mean, like other drugs too. But some people are on their seventh marriage. I mean, they're train wrecks, although they had a lot of money. But you can have a lot of money and be miserable. It's actually easier to be miserable with no money than it is with a lot of money. I've tried it both ways. I really like the lot of money route. I kind of prefer that. But this truly wealthy concept is just neglected in play to win, because people are playing a game that's not worth winning. Like, they're not asking, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because they get caught up into a one-dimensional, I'll do whatever it takes, and the rest of the world, the people that are most important to them, don't ever get them. Like, I think about someone in Utah that's created a lot of value in my life. His name's Larry Miller. He got diabetes, lost a leg, ended up dying. And all I heard about from the time that he went to the hospital till the time he died is that he was sick with regret because of how he spent zero time with his family and how much animosity there was there. Even though he brought the Utah Jazz to Utah, he built an amazing, arena. He built a speedway. Like, he did so many things in business because it was play to win, play to win, play to win. Health sucked, family sucked, dead. You don't get a second chance to build a life you love and create a legacy that lasts. His legacy within his family will consistently be something where they miss him, not from a sense that he's gone, but they always missed him. So really playing to win is dangerous because it's where high risk equals high return lives. Playing to win is at, I know I'm kind of saying the same things a couple times here, at any cost, but I just want you to really consider that in your life and say, is it the game you want? Does it leave you in a place where you're really happy? I've talked to a lot of people like, I check the boxes, I'm unhappy, because they didn't have the purpose. They didn't know how to relax or rejuvenate or do any of that kind of stuff because all they knew was work. And in my early 20s, that's all I knew. I was going to play to win. I was going to do whatever it took. And my goal was I just wanted to have more money than anyone I knew. And every time I met someone that had more money than me, I kind of hated them a little bit, and I just worked harder, And I was upset about it and frustrated. And then I'd work more and I'd neglect my family that much more. And it's just amazing I'm still married, to be honest with you. Fortunately, I had a paradigm shift, had a mindset shift where I started thinking about investing in my marriage. And doing the same things in my marriage that I was doing in my business, like regular meetings, having a vision, having mentors, reading books, all those same things in other areas of my life. My health being one of those. When I was 22 pounds heavier, higher creatinine levels with my kidney because I come from a family that's got a ton of kidney disease. And all of a sudden, when I got intentional and deliberate about that and used the exact same success formula I had in my business to these other areas of my life, it got better. But I had to have a success measure other than just the money. That's still a nice benchmark. It's still one indicator. It's just not the only indicator, right? So playing to win is reckless when it comes to investing. People that play to win are susceptible to the latest trends, the latest hot topics. They get really into the greed mode because all of a sudden they might hear about someone making a bunch of money in real estate. Like, oh my God, I got to get in real estate. I'm missing out on this whole thing. But that's not part of their investor DNA a lot of times. Your investor DNA is your core values, your core competencies. It's really your core drivers, and you focus instead of diversify. B.J. Palmer said it so eloquently and so well. He said, I put all my eggs in one basket, and I insure it well. Someone came to him and said, hey, I've got this investment for you. He says, why do you come to me? He's like, because you have a lot of money. He goes, and how did I make this money? And they said, well, in this institution you have. He's like, well, then I'll just keep putting the money where I know how to make it, because I don't put money in any place my heart's not in. That dude still has royalties coming into his estate, right? A lot of us are here in this conversation because of what he initiated. And by the way, when I heard, you took 8 weeks off, but more, is like he said, the bigger the vision, the more often you should travel. He said like oftener or some weird statement. People used to think I look like BJ, but I just smile too much. And if anyone can find a picture of him smiling, is like, that would be a miracle. So, yeah. So playing to win is very dangerous dogma. And especially when it comes to investing, because it's usually driven by greed and fueled only by return. But will the money return if it's not part of something you understand? Because risk is not actually in the investment. Risk is in you, the investor. What kind of investor are you? Are you investing in things that you know and understand? And if you don't know or understand it, move to cash. There's going to be a lot of money that transfers hands in the next couple of years. Now, it's going to be reported as lost money, but it won't be lost. It will be transferred to someone else that's in the know, with people that were gambling and speculating, but calling it investing. So when we get to this third category, it's the game changer around life and investing, and it's really been the secret weapon that, maybe I'm kind of an a-hole because I should have shared it earlier, because this is how we hit New York Times with killing sacred cows. It's how we hit Inc. 500 with the company that I started in the financial services field. And I was like, as soon as I really uncovered it, I kind of just utilized it, and then I shared it with a few of our inner circle people. And then one day I was telling someone about it, they're like, why haven't you written on this before? Why don't you talk about this very much? I'm like, oh, it just became kind of the elusive obvious. Once I got it, it just made sense. So this third category is we win, then play. It's a completely different mindset. How does that even work? Let's go through a few examples of it. Let's go back into the old days, and then we'll bring it into current days, and I'll even give some personal examples from me. France gave the United States the Statue of Liberty. Very nice gift, very cool. But they didn't give it any platform that it could be put on. So now all of a sudden, the US government is like, okay, we've got this statue that we've got, what are we gonna do with it? And they had a genius idea, which I don't know that they have a lot, so this is really important. Really important. They decided to advertise in New York newspapers that if you were to donate 6 cents, that you could actually be the first people to go visit the Statue of Liberty, and that 6 cents that all these different people donated built the platform. So think about how genius this is. They actually had the people that wanted to come and see it fund it. The people got something for fund it that they got to be the first to go actually experience it. So that was win then play. That was win then play. Like the NFL right now is so win then play because does anyone remember the Super Bowl, if you watch football, between the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks? I remember it because that was the time where my son became a turncoat. He left the Chicago Bears because he thinks they really suck, and we as a family like torture, so we continue to support the Bears. And he became a Seahawks fan because they beat Denver by so much that it was a horrendously boring game. But the NFL didn't make less money. They had already pre-sold all the tickets. They had already had all the concerts planned. They had already sold the TV rights before the game was ever played. They won first, then played. Like when it comes to investing, how do you win first, then play? You make money on the buy, for example. When the market goes down, which it has to go down, otherwise I'm retiring from this game. If it doesn't go down by the end of 2020, I'm not speaking on finance anymore because there's nothing that makes sense in the financial world at that point. Hype can bring the market to the level it's been at to a certain degree, but the fact that in history we've never seen these types of price to earnings ratios. If we go back to pre-2008, we haven't seen these kind of debt ratios ever before. And by the way, there's only been one time in history in the United States, I know we're in Canada, but I'm using the United States for this one, where we've had a longer period of time without a recession. And that just came with the Great Depression right after that time, by the way. So I think there's going to be a lot of wealth transferred, even though the news is going to report it as wealth that's lost. Money doesn't evaporate. It goes into other hands. It leaves one place and goes to another place. Are you going to be the one that actually collects that money, or has it collected from you? Well, win then play is going to be the game, because when the market goes down substantially, that's when you can make money. When you're highly liquid, when you've got access to cash, when if the market goes down, you're not participating in the downside, you can pounce and you can capitalize. Ted Turner, more land in the United States is owned by Ted Turner than any other private individual. He wins and plays. He waits for the market to go down. He has cash. He negotiates it at a 20% discount because he can close quickly, and all of a sudden he's already made the money. It's already more valuable the day that he buys it. Whether it's buying the Atlanta Braves, whether it's buying other billboard companies, like you could go through his history, and he's a genius investor. They call him a predatory investor. Now, I'm not asking you to be a predator where you're preying on the weak or the people that are unfortunate, but where you're going to provide a lot of return is when other people need liquidity. So if you don't know why you're earning money, what your exit strategy is, who your fund managers are, how it's benefiting you, you're not investing, you're gambling, move to cash. I'm being very bold about that because I don't want you to regret it down the road when you didn't listen. When you're like, he's extreme, it's going to be fine. Okay. I'll bail you out at that time if you need it. Just go ahead and call me.
Can I just comment on something? I'm a client of Garrett's, and I followed that advice on the Friday before the market crashed, and we saved $20,000. We moved to cash. My kids' 529 plans didn't plummet, and we saved about 20 grand.
I like you.
I love you too.
We met in Toronto, ironically, in April, thanks to an ice storm that we just were standing around waiting for the gate to come, and started working together. Had dinner the next day. Found out he knew Tom. I'm like, small world. So win and play, the way that I did it with Killing Sacred Cows is I pre-sold 22,000 books before the book was released. Now, I did it by creating value up front and telling people, this is back in the day where there were DVDs. I give people a DVD on it. We did an 8-week teleseminar series, so we gave them all this value up front, but now we pre-sold the book so that when I was writing it, I was actually writing it for someone. And I was getting feedback from those readers along the way that pre-purchased the book, and then all of a sudden we hit the ground running where we hit New York Times, and then it got more distribution because of that. Like, it was a win-then-play strategy. The very first time I ever put out a video series, I went to all of our existing fans and subscribers and said, hey, we're into a video series, but before we film the first video, we'd like to share with you an outline. We'd love to get your feedback, and if you're willing to invest right now, we'll give it to you at 50% of what we're going to charge when it's completed for a couple reasons. One, because you don't get it up front. You have to wait for it to be completed. Number two, we want your feedback. So we actually got $150,000 in our accounts before we filmed the first video. Win, then play. It's a mindset. It's a methodology. It requires integrity. Only people that integrity get to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to kick your ass, right? But if you have integrity, it absolutely works. And it's a different way of looking at the world and operating in business where it's value first, it's a value economy. And now let me relate this to finance. So what are some of the ways that you can have win, then play in finance? You've heard of like dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Well, let's do that right now because this is one of the ways that you get a lot more money in your life. So to cross the T would be for tax. Most people overpay their taxes. As a business owner, it's 93% of the time based upon our surveys over the last 10 years. I think it's gone up, and we're doing a new survey this year. I think it's probably 100%. Like, it would be rare for someone in the methodologies that we've discovered, which are pretty simple. One, you have to have a team and be proactive with them. If you're not talking to them quarterly, you're probably overpaying tax. If you don't reactively look every 3 years with a different set of eyes to amend, you might be overpaying tax. The second thing is, if you don't have a documentation structure and a tax strategist to tell you how to turn your expenses into tax deductions, you're probably overpaying tax. But the big one is reclassification. Reclassification is the game changer when it comes to tax. Reclassification is how do you move, first of all, active income to passive income. Passive income is taxed at a lower rate than active income. Number two, how do you move ordinary income into capital gains? Capital gains is a lower tax rate than ordinary income. Number three, as a business owner, because you're a business owner, how do you make taxable income become tax-free? That's a possibility as pretty much exclusive to a business owner. And number four, tax arbitrage. Tax arbitrage is anywhere when you spend $1, you get more than $1 of tax credit. And there's a lot of those that are available out there. So once you understand reclassification, deduction strategy and how to operate with the team, there's more tax savings. And it doesn't matter whether you're from Canada or the United States. We've had Canadians that I don't meet with them. I don't help them with their taxes. I teach them the format. And one guy that's a health guy here in Toronto, what's his name? Bald guy, played soccer. No, yeah. Do we save Sachin money? Yuri. Yeah, we saved Yuri $100,000, you know, and he's a Canadian. I don't even know what the Canadian tax laws are, but we saved him $100,000 because I taught him the format. So once you know that, you can get a lot more money. And think about the win then play. If you save tax, Mike, did we save you tax?
Yeah, it paid for the whole entire program for the year.
Cool. So we saved Mike tax. That was a win, right? Like right now, and you're going to save that next year as well. So imagine if to save that amount of money, how much money do you have to set aside and take risk and invest to eventually create that cash flow, where if you have financial intelligence and savvy, you get the money now. That's a win then play. It's an immediate guaranteed bottom line return. So now to the I's. The next I is interest. So ways that you become more efficient, you capture money, you put more money in your pocket, you boost your bottom line, you don't have to work harder, yet you have more money. It's how you structure your loans. It's having the right credit score, or the right collateral, or the right cash flow reporting, or the right connections to actually save you interest. So one of the ways that people can save interest is if you have any underperforming assets, like a certificate of deposit, or a money market, or funds in the market right now, like anything where you're earning a lower interest rate than you're paying on the loans that you have, cash it out and pay it off. It's a guaranteed return. That's really simple and basic, but I got to tell you, until we give people permission, we find that most people have that situation and don't take advantage of it. Or let's say you have a credit card. You could always refinance a car, get a 1.9 or 2.9% interest rate, and pay off a credit card that's usually a lot higher than that. And by the way, a car loan improves your credit score. A credit card lowers your credit score. When you improve your credit score, you could renegotiate other interest rates. All loans you have are negotiable. So I can go off on that for hours, but I'm just giving you a sense that there's money there for you if you know how to structure it, and if you know how to really operate properly with that. You can keep a lot more of what you make, or pay those things off with a lot less effort, or with the same dollars, shave off a bunch of time on it. Next I is investments. And investments are so misleading because we use percentages instead of using actual numbers. Like in percentages, it doesn't sound like a big deal. Like if I had $100,000 and I could earn 10% for 30 years, which is practically impossible to get it 10% every single year, but they like to show it that way sometimes, and that's what they could legally show. That $100,000 grows to $1.74 million at 10%. But let's say you have legal fees, admin fees, 12B1 fees, which are marketing fees that you pay the fund companies, or other kind of 401k, RSP, whatever it might be, fees that are coming out, and it's less than 1%. It's 0.8%. So now you're earning 9.2%. That same $100,000 at 9.2% grows to $1.4 million. That's $340,000 out of your life unnecessarily. Non-performing fees, hidden commissions. Once you detect it, you can remove it, and you can keep all that money. The second thing is making sure you're protecting your downside when it comes to investments. At what point when the market goes down does your mindset follow it? That's the time that you create a minimum liquidity event called a trailing stop loss. So if the market goes down by a certain spot, you actually move to cash and you don't have to follow it all the way down. Or if you loan someone money, you get a personal guarantee. Or if it's for a business, a UCC filing where you can attach to their cash flows. Or collateral like a bank would have. I mean, banks are pretty brilliant at this when they follow their own rules. Anyone got a mortgage recently? You got to give, I think now they look at your blood too, but and your stool samples, that's the weird one. But ultimately they're going, hey, we need to see an appraisal on the property. That's not for you, that's for them. You've already decided you own the property. If you don't put down enough down payment, you have PMI, private mortgage insurance. That's to insure and protect them. You have your credit score that they look at. You have your cash flow reporting and taxes. They're doing all this to mitigate and manage risk. The question is, how are you mitigating and managing your risk when it comes to your investments? Not doing it is playing to win, and it's very loose. Other people get so extreme with it that they only have cash and they don't even allocate it anywhere any other time. That's playing not to lose. Win then play would be, you know what it is, you take care of it, you don't participate in the whole downside, and you protect the money. Now, the last I is interest. There's just duplicate coverages, improper structure, and let me just give you a simple philosophy. The philosophy is insure the catastrophic, never the inconsequential. Your most expensive insurance is the insurance you're highest likely to use, but it's not going to harm you. So what I mean by inconsequential is this. You can sleep at night and write a check for cash to handle any of the incidents. That's inconsequential. Meaning, if I knew I had to pay $1,000 for a fender bender, I'm not losing sleep over it, and I can write a check for it. Now, if I had a lawsuit for $1 million, I'm losing sleep over it, and I sure as hell don't want to write a check for it. So that's more catastrophic. The last dollar you insure is the least expensive, yet most critical. Right? The last dollar, meaning that last highest amount that's being covered. Don't cover the small things, cover the big things. It's going to save you money. It's going to help you transfer risk. So save on tax, save on interest, save on non-performing investment fees, hidden commissions, and drag on your money, and then save on insurance without sacrificing coverage. If you do that, that's win then play. It's money in your life, money in your pocket. $2,484 per month is the improvement on cash flow optimization within one of those structures. The average tax savings is $11,470 per $500,000 of revenue. Like, it's actual cash going to the bottom line. Not revenue that you then pay employees or overhead. It's just spendable dollars. I feel like I should say something funny now because that was really intense. So we can all relax. Nobody's in trouble yet. So does that make sense on a win then play? Find the money, plug the leaks. Here's the second piece of win then play. Economic or financial independence. Different than financial freedom. Financial freedom is that state of mind and state of being that I mentioned. Economic independence is recurring revenue, which is cash flow coming in on a regular, predictable, consistent basis. When you have enough recurring revenue that shows up and pays life's basic expenses, not necessarily living wildly, but handling your basic lifestyle, you're economically independent. When that comes from either one of two sources, your assets or your entrepreneurial income. Your entrepreneurial income is the income that comes in when you're not tableside. Right? So when that covers life's basic expenses, here's what happens. You've already won. Now you can swing for the fences. If you're married, my guess is that your money personality and their money personality are not the same. This opposites attract thing, right? Like, the entrepreneur usually has ultimate optimism. Let's go full force. Let's red line. And then the other person's like, can we just have a little bit of money in the bank so I know that we're going to be okay and be able to pay our bills? Like, there's conflict there all the time. Economic independence transformed my wife from being concerned and a fact finder and asking too many questions to being my biggest cheerleader. Like, let's go. Because we're not risking vehicles, homes, lifestyle, or food because that's coming in from our assets. Recurring revenue. Most people are investing for accumulation. Accumulation is the enemy. Accumulation as a mindset is at best play to win, but likely play not to lose. What accumulation says is that wealth is a function of three things. Number one, how much money do you have? So that's where that crap of it takes money to make money comes from. It doesn't take money to make money. Yes, if you have money, you might be able to make money with it. But the reality is it takes value creation. It takes problem solving. It takes service. That's what makes money. And when people get this defeatist mindset of I don't have enough money to make money, or it takes money to make money, it is absolutely a destructive place to be. The second part of the formula for accumulation is return. And I'm sure you've heard, in order to get a high return, you've got to take a high risk. That's stupid. It is the dumbest idea. Like, some drunk assholes on Wall Street came up with this idea and sold us this bill of goods. Risk defined as chance of loss. So how, by increasing your chance of loss, are you going to get a return? Right now, have you seen everybody's super excited about Powerball or whatever the hell is going on in the lottery? That is just a tax on the poor. It's a there is no chance you're going to win. It's statistically irrelevant. And even worse is the mindset of something for nothing, or that wealth is a game of luck. I wouldn't buy it. I just wouldn't buy it. It pisses me off that it even exists, because if you look at the demographics, it's people that can't afford it that are buying it because their life is and they don't know what we're talking about here. We've got to live by example. We've got to embrace this because it's the only hope they have. When you can transform your life and you're willing to talk to them, that can change the world. But if instead we think, oh, we're just going to hand it over and we're going to go to church and we're going to pray and then that money's going to come, or I'm going to watch The Secret, I'm going to meditate this into my life, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You know? Like, I'm here to get 1 million people economically independent. If they're economically independent, then they can be an example to other people, because all of you have patience. And if all of a sudden, and not patience like you're a patient person, I sure as hell am not a patient person, not one of my values or virtues, but what I'm saying is you have people that you're serving, and if you can be an example to them, there's hope for them. Like when I was a teenager, I went to a thing called Governor's Honors Academy. It was for the top 50 students in the state of Utah. I was 51 apparently, but thank God someone dropped out, so I got in, you know. And it changed my world. I met scientists. This was like 26, 27 years ago. They were talking about 3D printing. It was blowing my mind. I met Ren Zafiropoulos, who invented Xerox. I met Jake Garn, who went into space as an astronaut and a senator. Like, I came back a changed person. I saw possibility. I saw hope. And I was growing up in East Carbon, Utah. That's the place where dreams go to die, my friends. Here's what happens there. We went and filmed there in December. This is how we were welcomed by 2 kids. Like the sprinkler of fingers, right? I'm like, what the? And then I find out, like, when I lived there, I think it was at its peak 5,000 people and 2 cops. It's now down to 1,000 people and 5 cops. Wrong direction, right? Not a good place to be. So Governor's Honors Academy changed my life. Like, it gave me hope. And so my hope is, like, I'm never going to reach 1 million people, just me showing up and speaking and making the difference. The difference is I get people like Mike who inspires other people. I get people like Tom who inspires other people, or whoever else is here in the room. That if you can actually do it, you're the amplifier. You're the influencer. I don't care whether I get the credit or not. I care whether it actually happens or not, right? And I feel like in my world and in my family, that's where I'm really focused, because I want to make sure that we don't go back into scarcity and think that hard work is all it takes. Hard work isn't all that it takes. Hard work and bad financial philosophy equals bankruptcy. It equals financial slavery. It's destructive. It destroys relationships. I watched it within my own family. I want my kids to understand they can pursue their greatest abilities, and they can make mistakes as part of the learning process, and that they can go out there, and if they choose to create a business or they choose to work for someone else, as long as they understand the rules of wealth and how money works, and that they got to embrace a life that they love and live their sole purpose, that's my work. I'm going to do it within my family and within the family that chooses to hire us too. My kids just don't pay me anything, right? They do give me kisses and hugs most of the time, you know, or wake me up at 4 in the morning other times. It's good that they're cute, you know? I love them most of the time, a good 95, 96% of the time. And then 4 or 5% of the time, I'm really confused why we had them. I just remember it was fun to make them, you know? So economic independence is this game changer that if you can achieve it, it's not a 30-year proposition. It's a 3 to 7 year. 7 year, if you're like me, you're not going to give up a single luxury in life. 3 years, you're already on a good track. You know, you're already, like when I meet Tom, he's already got everything in really good order. I had to work extra hard to be like, God, I need to give him some value for the money and investment that he paid, you know, because he was really pretty dialed in, had done a lot of work before he ever met me. And so when I look at that situation, it's like 3 to 7 years is completely attainable and possible, but I have to teach you the methodology. Here's the quick version. Number 1, we already talked about. Keep more of what you make. Don't go invest a single dollar or a cent until you've figured out how to be more efficient. Keep those dollars without cutting back or sacrificing. Number 2, strategically engineer wealth. What does that mean? It means find out that economic independence number and reverse engineer what it's going to take to get there in 3 categories. Number 1, your foundation. Your foundation is making sure you have the right car insurance, homeowner insurance, liability, disability, life insurance, business owner policies. So you're transferring risk. It's working together so it's efficient. You're not overspending your money. That you got the right credit score. You got the right cash flow reporting. You know, you've got your basic financial structure and team, because if you don't, things are going to slip through the cracks. I mean, I'm pretty sure that everyone knows 100% that when you are a business owner, you got to have an amazing team. That if you don't have an amazing team, life sucks, and you don't do as good at business. Here's an epiphany for some of you. It works the exact same with finance, right? Sometimes we go, oh, I have a really good financial advisor. I'm like, great. No financial advisor can be an expert in everything. They might be good at serving one area, but what's your team? Like, part of winning than playing is you pick the right team. Like, we pretty much knew when Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, John Stockton, like all this team went, and it was the dream team in like 96, we knew who was going to win. It was just a matter of how much. How much were we going to win by? That was win then play. Why not have all-stars on your team? The Rockefellers did. The Rockefellers, a-holes as many of them are, they had a good team, and they're on their 6th generation of wealth. The Vanderbilts, on the other hand, didn't have a good financial team, and they squandered the largest fortune in history. As a matter of fact, they had more money than the U.S. Treasury. They were so rich that they had money all over the world because that's how much money they had. And guess how much they have now? None. I mean, yeah, there's Vanderbilt University, not owned by the Vanderbilts. There's the Breakers in Rhode Island, not owned by the Vanderbilts. The Biltmore in South Carolina, North Carolina, one of the Carolinas, not owned by the Vanderbilts. 10 Mansions in Manhattan, gone, owned by the Vanderbilts at one time. They got really good at spending money, not good at actually providing value. Part of it was not having a good financial team, not having everybody on the same page. So the second piece to this of a strategically engineering wealth, the first is the foundational piece. The second is sustainability and safety measures. Building up enough liquidity, having estate plans, having asset protection, those types of things, because we're all in store for financial surprises. It's just that we can prepare for 90+% of them if we actually take the time and actually get it done. The third part is growth. It's discovering your investor DNA, only investing in things that you know and not investing in anything else. Focus instead of diversify. So number 1, recover more cash, keep more of what you make. Number 2, strategically engineer wealth, find out your target, reverse engineer. Build the plan. It might be paying off loans, might be turning on cash flow with the existing investments, which takes me to part number 3. Part number 3 is accelerate investment income. Look at all of your existing assets, and if they're not creating cash flow, they're slowing you down. Don't get trapped in that accumulation where you got wealth being a function of how much money you put in, how much risk you're willing to take, and number 3, how long you're willing to wait. I just think Heinz doesn't have it right when they're like, the best things come to those who wait. Are you shitting me? Things get lost for those who wait, Like, sometimes you got to capitalize. And I think it's crazy when the market doesn't go well, you're going to start seeing articles when it starts going south of, well, if you want to retire, maybe move to Ecuador. Yeah, sure. If you like dysentery and you don't care if your family's around, that's a great idea. It's really cheap to live there. Plus, when you have diarrhea all the time, you don't need to eat, you're not hungry. Like, this is not good advice. It's going to that accumulation model. Wealth equals money times rate times time. No, it doesn't. Money is a function of value creation. Money is a function of the type of mental capital you have, which is your knowledge, ideas, wisdom, tools, strategies, information, multiplied by your relationships. People, networks, mentors, family, friends, and the bridge between them is business. That's what business is. It just bridges mental capital and relationship capital so you can serve, solve problems, and deliver value, and as a byproduct, money. So when people think that they have a money problem, it's never a money problem. Number 1, if you can write a check, not a money problem. Number 2, it's an idea or people problem. You're one idea or one relationship away from solving it, if you know how to tap into that. That's win then play. Win then play is we leverage mental capital, not financial capital. Financial capital leverage can be really risky. So this third piece of creating economic independence is accelerating investment income, turning on the cash flow tap instead of accumulating, keeping money in motion. The fourth thing is a game changer. It's to scale business revenue. Scaling to me is if we were trying to climb this hotel, we'd put a ladder up against it. The way that some people try to scale is they try to leap up the building like they think they're Spider-Man and they're going to get to the top. The reality is they're going to fall and crash. The better way to scale is you let go of one thing and then you grab the next, which means delegation instead of relegation. Relegation is you just tell someone to get something done, they have no clue what you're talking about, and then you expect them to do it just like you would have done. Delegation is not giving someone a task, but having them own a role. R-O-L-E. They own that role just like it was their business, and you support it when they ask rather than micromanage them. That is a game changer. And then you start saying, just like there was the lifeboat today, there's the lifeboat of your activities. If you could only do 5 activities and nothing else, what would those 5 activities be? Delegate everything else, but you take your time to get there. Let go of one thing, grab the next. Let go of the next thing, grab the next. That's proper scale. And your business will probably get you to economic independence faster than all other components combined. Now, the 5th one is my favorite, though. Because the 5th one takes into consideration that you're your greatest asset. Not a stock or a bond or a piece of real estate, it's you. And the last piece is to make it count. The last piece is to live your legacy, not just leave one. The last piece is to define success, to create a game that's worth winning, and make sure the juice is worth the squeeze, and you live into that. It's the make it count segment, right? Benjamin Franklin said, wealth is not the man that has it, but the man that lives it. So when you treat yourself as your greatest asset, you take care of yourself, then all of a sudden you have more to give. So that make it count for me was saying, okay, we're going to spend 2 months in Italy. We're going to get, and the way we won and played in that is I booked the flights, getting there and then not coming back for 2 months. We booked the villa, so I had to operate differently in my business. I had 18 months. We got really serious about what I was doing and not doing, and guess what? Everyone on my team got to mature. It's kind of like the helicopter parent. If you're always around, you're the helicopter parent of your business. And you are the lowest paid person in that business a lot of the time because you'll solve the problems, because you love it, you care about it, you care about the people that you take care of. I've yet to meet the chiropractors like, I became a chiropractor because I want to be rich as shit. No, you guys were like, I want to help people and heal them. I'm the one that comes in and is like, I'm going to help you guys be rich as shit, right? Because like, my son is so severely disappointed that I'm not a doctor. You know, he's always like, Dad, like when we're like, hey, we're going to the chiropractor, he's like, why aren't you a chiropractor? I'm like, I help chiropractors, buddy. He's like, I know, but it'd be really nice if you were one. I'm like, buddy, someone's got to help these guys with their finances. They're pretty effed up in their finances, and, you know. And every time he's disappointed, I'm like, you're just going to have to settle for a multi-millionaire father. I mean, what can I say, you know? My favorite is when my kids made the mistake once of asking if they were rich. Dad, are we rich? I'm like, oh, well, I'm rich. I don't know about you yet. You got like $1,000. It's really yet to be determined. So make it count. Recover cash. Strategically engineer wealth. Find that economic independence. Accelerate investment income. Find those resources to turn into cash flow. Scale your business. Invest there first. Don't invest in other people's dreams before you've funded your own. Then make it count. That's how you get economic independence. At economic independence, you've already won the game. What do you want to do to play? What's your vision? How do you want to swing for the fences? Like when that's not an impediment, but it's an asset, it's a game changer. And like, here's the huge advantage. Most people in this world are thinking, I need to save 10% of my income and earn 10% on that in a place they don't even control the 10% earnings. I'm teaching you, what if you could take 100% of your freaking income and invest 100% of that income? Because, you're already economic independent. Your active income isn't required for your lifestyle. It's really good, I'm telling you. That's how I got to go to Italy. Like, I'm not here to save you a few bucks. That'll be great, we'll do it. I'm not here to make sure that a little broken piece in your finances get handled. I'm here for a complete transformation and shift of your financial life that leads to a legacy that lasts. That could be generations, that your great-great-grandkids know who you are, what you stand for, and that you contributed to their life, not just with the money that you leave behind, but the non-monetary assets like your philosophies, like your values, like game-changing stuff.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.